You should murder kids in this.
Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, that is, look, when you make a decision to drop a bomb on a building where you know there are children inside of it, yes, morally speaking,
leaflets,
you murdered those children.
Phone calls. You've told them
so
to
the leaflets
evacuate.
make it not murder. Okay. So how about when they don't?
There's no
How
intent.
about this last attack?
There's no intent to murder them.
Wait, let me ask you a question. Follow up. How about when they don't? What about when they don't drop leaflets? What about when they don't have evacuation orders? They just did this in Gaza City yesterday. How about that? Is that now murder?
Well,
I just took away your excuses.
No. I could give you an example. They don't have to drop leaflets and give phone calls if they're
so then why are you bringing that up?
I'm saying.
What is up, everybody? Jackson here, and this one is going to sit with you for a while. After you watch it, Brandon Tatum, who's built a huge chunk of his public identity on being pro-life, called abortion a demonic process on a podcast back in 2024. Fast forward to September of 2025, and he's sitting across from Dave Smith on Piers Morgan's show, defending civilian casualties in Gaza as unfortunate but justified urban warfare. Dave Smith caught that gap immediately and would not let him slide past it. Innocent life sacred everywhere, or does that principle change depending on where the child is standing when the bomb drops? This isn't a screaming match, and that's actually what makes it so effective. It's a guy calmly asking a question that Tatum genuinely could not find a clean answer to on live television. I'm going to break down exactly where that argument fell apart and why it matters for anybody who builds their politics around moral consistency. Stick around for the breakdown. Smash that like button. Get subscribed. Because we're the channel that actually sits with the hard questions instead of dodging them. Now, let's get into it.
People, and this is my advice to people who are Zionists or people who are Jews, you got to stop with the pushing the anti-Semitic thing every time somebody says something you don't like. You have to stop. I was just talking to a friend yesterday that said he just got bombarded with people calling him an anti-Semite because he shared a post of somebody who, may have had a difference of opinion. So that needs to stop, or you're going to lose all credibility and respect from good people that love you. Now, Tucker Carlson, when I first watched it, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't think none of it. I don't really like Tucker very much, but and I do think that he has a lot of negative things to say unjustifiably about Israel, but he's entitled to his own opinion. But I can see why some people are thinking that he may have been subliminally saying things that were connecting Israel to this whole thing. Now, I don't go down the bandwagon because I can't unequivocally prove that, but I did find it interesting that he had made mention as if Charlie was really an attack or attacking the government, as if Charlie's death was directly associated with government officials, when in fact, it was really these narcissistic lunatics that are over-medicated that hate Charlie because he's countering the arguments that we see that's pervasive on campus. The government is not taking extreme positions as the kids on campus are taking. They're brainwashed. I've been on campus. I've been to probably 40 universities. The kids on campus don't live in reality. They live in an alternate reality. They don't live like we do. We pay taxes. We have to go to work. We have to be nuanced about arguments and things that we get involved in. They are completely radicalized. So I think that people could take it a certain way, but let me tell you this. It seems as if Charlie was very good friends with Tucker Carlson. And it seems to me that Tucker Carlson can say whatever he want to say, and that may be the way he liked to grieve, or that's the way that he wanted to present himself at a ceremony. And I think people should leave it alone unless you have unequivocal evidence that he was somehow trying to do that, because you cheapen the love and respect and dedication that all of the people who spoke at the ceremony had for Charlie Kirk's life. People got to stop trying to go too deep on both sides. Let the man be loved and appreciated by everybody who was on stage, and quit trying to conjure up controversy and conspiracies.
Piers, could I just add to that, because I do think there's something kind of interesting, like because having a black conservative and a Jewish guy who's like a critic of Israel, there's always like some parallels that I see between those two positions. And I think maybe we could, like, across the board on all of these things, people got to just stop making accusations of bigotry based off of what you're guessing the other person was dog whistling. Like, you're saying that there was that there was a secret message hidden somewhere in what the other person said. Listen, say what you will about Tucker Carlson. I know Brandon said he's not a big fan. I love the guy. Of all the things you could criticize him for, he'll tell you how he feels. I promise you. He'll tell you how he feels. If he has a controversial view, he'll say it. He's not hiding some view embedded in his story here. And people got to get over this, man. There's just, like, if we couldn't take one lesson away from the last 15 years, that making these accusations of bigotry to shut down conversations and making these accusations where there's no tangible evidence that they exist, they do not solve the problem of real bigotry. They make the problem much worse. And everybody should back off of that. Now, I do want to ask, though, I got to say, because as you mentioned there, you said that, your friend was being called anti-Semitic for sharing a clip of what someone else thought. And listen, man, we don't know each other, but literally the only interaction we've ever had is you called me, I think, a devil and one of the worst people in America the other day, also for sharing a clip disgusting. Of somebody else.
No.
Devil.
I'm glad you brought it up. Because there's a reason why I said that. It's not that I somehow mentioned something about you just in passing. You shared a post of one of the most disingenuous, evil individuals that I've ever seen online. Nick Fuentes shamed Charlie. Ever since 2017, he would come out, harass, accost Charlie at events. He would harass his wife. Him and the gropers would harass my wife because she's white. And this guy said Charlie is a fake Christian and he's disgusting and he should never be able to be on campus without being shouted down. And then he comes out and makes a fake apology. And I felt like you supported that. And then also, my art with you, I had never met you before. I disagree with you on Israel, but I respect that you come with your opinions. But when you were on stage at SAS and you chastised those young people and said they can never claim to be pro-life ever again because they support a genocide, I thought that was the most disgusting thing that any adult man could say to young kids who was just seeking the truth and openly listening to a debate between you and another individual. So the only reason I said that is based on those principles alone. I don't know you personally, but I thought that was disgusting. And anybody who support that Nick Fuentes guy who shamed my friend who's now dead, it bothers me to no end.
Dave?
Okay, well, look, I mean, again, I said I give him all the credit in the world for this. And what was this? This was after Charlie Kirk was killed, him saying that he was a good man, that he's praying for his soul, and urging his supporters not to be violent in response to this. And I got to say, I thought, as I think many of us did, immediately after Charlie was killed, and immediately after your first reaction of feeling so horrible on a personal level for his family, you realize this is a very dangerous situation. And I got to say, for Nick Fuentes, being who he is, to have him telling his audience, hey, if you respond at all with violence to this, I completely disown you. We need to be Christians about this. We need to be peaceful. We should be praying for him and his family. I give him credit for that. Whatever other beef you got with him, that's between you two. I didn't say I agree with the guy on everything he's ever said. Well, hold on. Let me just respond. I didn't endorse everything the guy's ever said. I said I give him all the credit in the world for this, and then shared the clip of this. Pretty clear what I was saying. And by the way, I didn't chastise the kids at Charlie Kirk's event. I warned them. I warned them that if you're supporting the destruction of a captive, stateless people in Gaza right now, that you will never be able to claim to be pro-life again without being rightfully viewed as the biggest hypocrite in the universe. That's an opinion that I will gladly defend. And I noticed in there, you're not actually taking on that argument. You're just telling me how disgusting I am for having it. So listen, man, I think that if there's one thing Charlie would have wanted, it probably would have been for us to have this conversation without devolving into insults. You can say it's disgusting if you want to. I think there's a pretty strong argument for my point there. I think it's kind of undeniable. There's a real conflict between being pro-life and then also supporting a policy, the price tag of which is tens of thousands of slaughtered babies, children.
Well, on that point, Officer Tatum, let me, I will let you respond, but let me just put that directly to you, because one of the reasons that I've become...
Okay, let's actually sit with what happened in that exchange, because underneath the crosstalk, there's one clean question that never got a clean answer. Tatum's whole public brand rests on a simple, absolute claim. Innocent life is sacred. Full stop. That's what pro-life means to him. Dave Smith's move wasn't to argue Middle East policy in the abstract. It was to ask whether that same absolute principle survives contact with a building in Gaza that has children inside it. And Tatum's answer, when you strip away the back and forth, came down to it's urban warfare. Hamas operates among civilians, and when leaflets or phone call warnings are given, the resulting deaths aren't murder. Dave Smith's counter was that the moment you attach a geographic or circumstantial exception to innocent life is sacred. You haven't refined the principle, you abandoned it. I want to be fair to both sides of what's actually a real hard argument here, because good faith people land in very different places on it. Tatum's position that responsibility for civilian deaths shifts onto a combatant force that embeds itself among non-combatants is an argument with real currency in international law debates about human shields, and it's not an unserious position. The counter-argument, which Smith pressed, is that intent and embedding don't erase the moral weight of the party that pulls the trigger or drops the bomb. That a military still owns the outcome of its own targeting decisions, regardless of how the other side positions itself. Both of those are real ethical frameworks argued in good faith by serious people, and this clip doesn't settle which one is correct. What the clip does show clearly is that Tatum, specifically, has built his entire public identity on the first framework being non-negotiable in one context, abortion, while treating it as negotiable in another. That's the actual contradiction. Smith surfaced, and it landed because it's internally inconsistent on Tatum's own stated terms, not because one geopolitical position is simply right and the other wrong. The numbers cited in the clip, casualty figures, malnutrition deaths, the claims about how many times statehood was offered are the kind of specific, disputed figures where different sources will give you meaningfully different counts depending on who's compiling them. I'm not going to hand you a number as settled fact from a panel clip. If that's a figure you want to build an opinion around, it's worth checking against multiple independent sources rather than any one debate clip, mine included. What I'll leave you with is this. The most uncomfortable part of that exchange wasn't about Israel or Gaza specifically. It was Tatum's inability to notice in real time that he was applying one standard to one group of children and a different standard to another. That's worth sitting with, regardless of where you land on the underlying conflict, because that particular failure, not seeing your own principle bend depending on geography, is not limited to one side of this debate. It shows up across the political spectrum constantly in people who are otherwise sincere. So tell me what you think in the comments. Is Tatum's distinction between direct killing and embedded combatant casualties a real moral line? Or is Dave Smith right that it collapses under its own weight? And if you want more breakdowns that actually sit with the hard part, instead of picking a team and yelling, get subscribed, because that's the whole point of this channel.